If you think you've heard everything Trump said about the Iran war, you haven't heard it at half speed. What Kimmel found in the gaps is why the clip has never stopped circulating. By the time the audience's sound peaked, and it peaked twice, which almost never happens in a single segment, the slowed clip had already done something that 73 days of straight news coverage had not. It had made the contradictions audible in a way that real-time delivery conceals, not because Trump was hiding them, because speed is itself a form of concealment. Strip the pace away and the scaffolding shows. The network had logged the segment at 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The slowed clip ran for 47 seconds of that. Those 47 seconds were the ones that shook the audience, not the laughter, the specific, different sound that came after. 9:44 p.m. Studio H. The desk had one item on it when the segment began, a remote control centered precisely between Kimmel's water glass and the edge of the desk, with the specific intentionality of an object that has been placed rather than set down. 7:22 p.m., 2 hours and 22 minutes earlier, Kimmel's head writer had sent a clip to the editing team with a single instruction attached: half speed, clean audio, no effects, no music. The clip was Trump's April 1st primetime Iran address, the one where oil had surged 7%, the dollar had strengthened, and global markets had registered it as escalation rather than strategy. The speech, in which Trump had claimed dramatic gains, described Iran's military as effectively crippled, refused to provide any timeline for ending the conflict, and then, in the same breath, promised intensified attacks over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Reuters had described it as a speech of contradictions. The markets had agreed before the networks had finished covering it, but no one had listened to it at half speed. The edit came back at 8:51 p.m. Kimmel watched it once. He said one thing: run it after the first document. Everything you just said, Kimmel told the camera at the top of the segment, was designed to fill the room with noise. But facts don't care about volume. He held the remote up, and at half speed, he said, the noise becomes something else. The first document went up on the screen behind him. A compiled timeline, the full 73 days of Trump's public Iran statements. The same record Colbert's map segment had opened, but formatted differently. 2 columns, not one. Left column, the statement. Right column, the specific claim embedded in the statement, the objective declared, the outcome promised, the figure cited, the timeline given. 73 days, 31 entries in the right column. Kimmel placed his finger on February 28th. Nuclear facility neutralization, Iran's path to a weapon eliminated. He moved to April 1st. The speech. Iran's military effectively crippled, intensified attacks in the next 2 to 3 weeks. He looked at the camera. Same speech, he said. One sentence apart. He put the remote on the desk. That's not a strategy. That's a sentence that ate itself. The studio gave a sound that had laughter and something else in it. Then he picked up the remote. Now listen to it, he said. The way it actually comes out. The clip ran at normal speed first. Trump at the podium, April 1st, the primetime address. The full statement about Iran's military being crippled. The transition into the promise of intensified attacks. The specific cadence of a man who has learned that speed is a form of argument. That if you move fast enough between contradictory claims, the contradiction does not have time to register as contradiction. The studio watched it. The studio had heard it before. It produced a mild, recognizing sound. Kimmel pressed the button. The clip ran again. At half speed, Trump's voice dropped to the specific register that half-speed audio produces. Deeper, slower, each syllable stretched to a length at which the words lose their surface confidence and begin to reveal the structure beneath them. The first sentence, Iran's military has been effectively crippled. At half speed, the word crippled stretched across 4 syllables that the real-time version had delivered as one sharp claim, and in the stretching, the audience heard what the speed had covered. The specific, slight upward inflection at the end of the word, the micro-cadence of a statement that is not a fact, but a performance of a fact, delivered in the register of certainty while carrying the frequency of uncertainty. The studio made a sound, not laughter, not discomfort, something between them, the specific sound of recognition arriving at a frequency people had not expected to register. Then the second sentence arrived, still at half speed. We will intensify our attacks over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And at half speed, the transition between the 2 sentences became audible as a gear change, a shift in register, a moment where the same voice that had just declared victory was announcing the continuation of the effort required to achieve it, the contradiction no longer moving fast enough to hide behind its own velocity. The studio's second sound was louder than the first. It peaked and held. Kimmel put the remote down. He said nothing for 4 seconds. Then, he used his bones, looking at the camera, referencing the March 17 segment, the Fox News news moment where Trump had said, "I feel it in my bones," as his explanation for when the war would end. He feels it in his bones, and the bones say, "We've crippled them. Also, we need 2 more weeks." The studio gave the laugh that had been building since the first half-speed syllable. It ran for 6 seconds and settled into the specific quiet of a room that has arrived somewhere and knows it. The second document went up, a market analysis, the April 1st speech's real-time impact on oil prices, currency exchange, and global equities. Oil up 7.3% within 40 minutes of the speech's conclusion. The dollar strengthened, which in the specific language of currency markets during a military conflict means the markets heard escalation rather than resolution. Global equities down across 3 major indexes before the Asian session opened. Kimmel read the 3 figures. He placed the document on the desk. "Markets don't have bones," he said. "They have algorithms." And the algorithms heard the second sentence. The studio gave a brief, precise laugh. A door near the production wing opened. A man, former senior signals intelligence analyst, retired 18 months prior, who had worked in theater analysis during the period covered by the Iran conflict timeline. His testimony was operational. He described what the specific language of the April 1st speech indicated from an intelligence analysis standpoint about the administration's actual assessment of Iranian military capacity at the time of delivery. He named the specific terms: effectively crippled, substantially degraded, operationally constrained, and the specific distinctions between them in the language of military assessment. Effectively crippled was not an operational term. It was a public communication term. It did not appear in theater assessment documents because it did not have a defined threshold. There was no condition in the operational framework that corresponded to it, and its use in a primetime address indicated the address was not a briefing, but a broadcast. Trump's Truth Social account posted during the testimony. 7 words, full capitals. He absorbed the post without looking up. "Silence doesn't protect anyone," he said. "It just makes the people who enforce it more comfortable." The second witness came through the same door 60 seconds later, a woman who had served as a senior economics correspondent for a financial publication covering the defense sector, who had written the analysis of the April 1st speech's market impact that had been cited in 2 congressional briefings. She described the gap between what the speech said, military campaign effectively resolved, victory imminent, and what the markets heard, escalation ongoing, timeline indeterminate, cost trajectory upward. She said the gap was not unusual for wartime speeches. What was unusual was its size. The distance between the claim and the market interpretation had been the largest single speech divergence she had recorded in 11 years of covering defense economics. When Trump's press secretary issued a statement describing her analysis as a partisan financial hit piece dressed as economics, she looked at the camera with the patience of someone who covers markets and knows that markets do not respond to press secretary statements. "I stayed quiet because I was afraid," she said, "but I was more afraid of what it meant if I never spoke." The studio's final sound was the slow, convergent wave of hands coming together, not for the comedy, which had already peaked, but for the thing the comedy had uncovered. Kimmel looked at the camera. "The scaffolding of this speech," he said. His voice at the lower register, the one the room recognized as different from the comedy register, is still standing. The clip is still in the record, and the market close on April 1st is still in the record. He paused. "You keep saying this is fake." He held up the remote. "So prove it. Right now, in front of everyone." He placed the remote on the desk beside the documents. And for a moment the studio was specifically still. Trump's counterstatements arrived in the sequence they always arrive. The market data, oil plus 7.3%, equities down, dollar strengthened, was reproduced on 3 network broadcasts before midnight with the specific half-speed audio clip running in the lower third, no commentary. The word scaffolding appeared as a segment title on 2 platforms beneath the frozen frame of Kimmel's hand on the remote. By morning, the clip had crossed 33 million views. The half-speed syllable, crippled, stretched, the upward inflection audible, had been extracted and posted as a standalone audio clip on 14 platforms. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. The next confrontation is already building, and once you see what's coming, you'll understand why silence is always louder than power.